I'm here at Orgreave, outside what was the coking plant. 30 years to the day since I was knocked unconscious by a paramilitary force purporting to be a police force. On that day, nearly 100 miners were arrested. On that day, holy hell was let loose. Not by the pickets, mine workers, dressed in t-shirts and plimsolls, but by a paramilitary police force armed to the teeth, with body armour, with dogs, with staves and with horses. That there were witnesses here on the police side who know that there was a travesty of justice took place on that day, yes, and on the preceding days as well. It's no comfort to me to say I told you so, but it's a fact of life that 30 years on, from 1984 to the very day, the predictions that were made, that the pits would be closed, jobs would be lost, and mining communities destroyed, has become a reality. If lessons are going to be learned, they've got to be learned by the trade union movement as a whole. You can either roll over when threatened, or you can fight, stand up and fight back. Last year, for example, I went to Dublin to commemorate and celebrate the 1913 lockout that some people said had been a defeat. It was honoured by the government 100 years on. And likewise, today, people are talking about what happened at Orgreave on the 18th of June 1984. Why? Because the struggle that took place then has resonated down the years, and people now know that what we attempted to do was the right thing. Not only to try and save the industry, not only to save our jobs held in trust for our children and grandchildren, but to save our communities. Proof? Look around me. It's desolate. It's deserted. It's been a wasteland since 1984. We're now importing expensive gas, expensive oil, and more importantly, expensive coal. How can anybody in their right mind justify the importation of coal in the year 2014 at a massive cost to Britain's taxpayers, when beneath our feet we've got coal reserves for 1,000 years, coal reserves that can be produced cheaply and more effectively than any form of fuel. And from that fuel we can extract gas, we can extract oil and chemicals of all kinds. And at the end of the process we have the very fuel that's required to produce electricity. Of course, that needs planning. It needs socialist planning. And that's what the Tories intended to destroy, or try to destroy, in 1984. What they did not do is destroy the spirit of the miners who fought so courageously. Miners' wives who were magnificent during that struggle. I was proud to take part in that struggle. Yes, I got knocked unconscious, but so did many other miners who were in hospital for months. We took part in a struggle that become historic, and to the rest of my days I will be proud that I was at Orgreave in 1984. And incidentally, I'm pretty proud to be at Orgreave in 2014 to tell you that the miners were right, and the government, the coal board and all of the mass media not only got it wrong, but misrepresented the views and the spirit and intention of those who bravely fought on picket lines like this to try and save an industry and try and save a way of life. It was suggested that Arthur Scargill was trying to close Orgreave in the same way that it closed the Saltley Coke Works in Birmingham in 1972. Actually, it was workers who closed the Saltley Coke Works in 1972, and for the record, it was mine workers and other supporters in 1984, on the 18th of June, who closed Orgreave. I actually have a copy of the telex from Sir Robert Haslam, Chairman of British Steel, closing the Orgreave plant on the 18th of June 1984. didn't get published, no real in-depth investigation. I called for mass picketing to be increased. The Chief Constable of South Yorkshire is on record of saying that if the picketing had been maintained, South Yorkshire Police would have found it difficult, if not impossible, to stop the permanent closure of the coking plant during the course of the dispute. Unfortunately, areas of the union didn't respond, and I think that was a mistake. It's interesting to note that 6 years later, I was down at this plant when they finally closed it on an instruction from British Steel because it was no longer any use. I telephoned South Yorkshire Police from a telephone box just down the road, and I asked, can you send immediately some police down to Orgreave? And the young police officer said, why? I said, they're closing Orgreave coking plant. He said, well, what's that got to do with us? I said, well, it had a hell of a lot to do with you in 1984 when you had 8,200 riot police down here. We can't even get one police officer down when they're closing it permanently and sacking the entire workforce. There's a lesson in that for everybody. Yes, it's true that the government papers in 2014 have revealed two things. One, the intention to close the industry, and two, an intention to try and arrest me and charge me with conspiracy. More than that, my barrister in 1984 accidentally saw a file in the headquarters of the police in Sheffield marked Scargill conspiracy file. In simple terms, there was a pre-plan to arrest me before I was finally arrested, pre-planned of May 1984. Did we do right? Of course we did. We fought back, and those courageous men and women who took part will forever be written into the history of the labour and trade union movement. I believe that today, 30 years on to the day, 18th of June, is an important day because it will go down in the pantheon of those great struggles that have taken place over the last few centuries. It will rank alongside the great struggles, and I'm proud to say that I was part of it. Holy hell was let loose, not by the pickets, mine workers, dressed in t-shirts and plimsolls, but by a paramilitary police force armed to the teeth, with body armour, with dogs, with staves and with horses.